A Tale of Two Heroes by Stephanie Gorostiza. In this presentation, I will analyze the journey of Michael Moorcock's Elric and compare it to Sterling Lanier's Hyro's journey using Joseph Campbell's framework of the hero's journey from his inspired book, A Hero with a Thousand Faces. Campbell noticed a pattern in many of the myths that he read and eventually mapped out the similarities that he noticed among these stories. He broke the hero's journey down into 3 phases: separation, initiation, and return. Within those 3 phases, there are sub-events or sub-phases that the hero will traverse or achieve in his journey. The 3 phases, separation, initiation, and return, are what Campbell considers a rite of passage. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. In this quote, Campbell provides a succinct summary of the hero's willingness to accept his call to adventure and how such a journey is to benefit the greater good of man. Thus the tales are both pitiless and tearless, suffused with the joy of a transcendent anonymity regarding itself and all of the self-centered battling egos that are born and die in time. In this quote, Campbell summarizes the motivation behind the creators of the myths and the hero's journey. Our first hero is more of an anti-hero, Michael Moorcock's Elric of Melniboné. Elric is a prince, often referred to as the Frail Prince. He is also an albino, not the typical characteristics of a hero or prince, and his empire that he leaves behind is more of an evil empire. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's because he wants to depart from evil. In his saga, we learn that's quite impossible for him to do that. There are a collection of Elric stories, but here we will focus on the Book of the Dead. Some common fantasy tropes we see in the Book of the Dead are sword and sorcery, quest, and the magic sword. Elric is capable of casting spells, but claims they pale in comparison to what his ancestors were capable of. Elric is from Melniboné, and his journey in the Book of the Dead takes place outside Melniboné. Even though Elric is the rightful emperor there, we get a sense that he doesn't feel he quite fits in. He is tortured, but he wants peace, and seeks the truth, which is a theme that we see in the story. Elric seeks to know if there is a benign God above who has control over the lords of law and chaos. He believes that the Book of the Dead will offer these answers, and thus our story begins. Elric's call to adventure is at the request of Shaarilla, the female character who serves as the woman's temptress. She tells him about the Book of the Dead, and Elric wonders if this will be the key to unbinding him from Stormbringer, reclaiming the love of his life that was lost at Stormbringer's blade. His refusal of the call is mainly about accompanying Shaarilla and developing a relationship with her, because good luck is not common with those who keep company with Elric, but he quickly agrees to accompany her despite his feigned refusal. Stormbringer is a special sword that is so powerful it's considered an artifact in the gaming world. Additionally, Stormbringer is Elric's supernatural aid and is the Stiller of Souls, which is the title of the collection of books in this phase of Elric's adventure, and the one which we are focusing on here. Elric cannot survive without him, and the use of Stormbringer brings Elric to a normal state, but not a superior one. Drug addiction is often the parallel drawn between the relationship of Elric and Stormbringer. As Elric transitions to the next stage in the hero's journey, he is attacked by a denizen of the marshland and calls out to Arioch, a lord of chaos, for assistance, but Arioch ignores his plea. This is important because Arioch is Elric's patron god, but he does not come to his aid. As the story moves through the initiation phase of the hero's journey, Shaarilla, Eric, and Moonglum, a young man Elric meets after crossing the threshold, battle with various beast-like creatures sent forth by the Lords of Entropy. This road of trials ultimately leads to the biggest battle the 3 will face with the massive winged ape-like Klugars, primeval ancestors of Shaarilla. At the conclusion of this fight, their battling is done, and the Keeper of the Book offers them no more resistance to obtain the book. As Elric grasps a hold of the book, it turns to dust, his questions unanswered, and his goal unattained. The motivation behind this could be because Moorcock subverts the hero's journey as we compare it to that of Tolkien's Bilbo or Lanier's Hyro. The final phases of the hero's journey are unrealized in this story. For context, Moorcock was in the camp of authors that purposely strayed from the traditional hero, and was also anti-Tolkien. His stories and characters reflect that attitude, and some of the events we expect to take place during the hero's journey lack in this story. Perhaps that is why I couldn't find an event that would align with the atonement of the father. In stark comparison to Elric is Sterling Lanier's Hyro's Journey. The title of the book is intentionally and appropriately named. This book is set in post-apocalyptic Canada and America after the year 7000. Environment is a main and recurrent theme in this book. The world Hyro lives in is apocalyptic because the world that was succumbed to the death, which was a combination of environmental neglect and over-industrialization. Some common tropes we see in this novel are telepathy, good versus evil, and a magic staff or sword. Unlike Elric, a necromancer, Hyro is a Catholic priest, part of a brotherhood that battles the unclean. Additionally, Hyro is not white or albino, and the narrator describes him as a stocky young man, clean-shaven but for a mustache, with a straight black hair, copper skin, and a hooked nose of a good Metz. He was moderately proud of his pure descent, for he could tell off 30 generations of his family without a break. It had come as a profound shock in the Abbey school when the Father Abbot had gently pointed out that he and all other true Metz, including the Abbot himself, were descended from the Métis, the French-Canadian Indian half-breeds of the remote past, a poverty-stricken minority whose remoteness and isolation from city life had helped save a disproportionate number of them from the death. Hyro's ancestry is interesting to call out, and was not common for protagonists in fantasy novels at the time that Lanier wrote Hyro's Journey. The sub-events that take place within the 3 phases of the hero's journey are more pronounced in Hyro's Journey, and more of them are fulfilled. For example, Hyro has a mentor, Father Demero, and we can consider Brother Aldo both a mentor and perhaps the father in the atonement of the father phase. In comparison to Moorcock's While the Gods Laugh, a mentor is something that Elric is denied in his journey. Crossing of the threshold is pronounced in both stories, and for Hyro it begins when he enters the swampland. Another similarity between the 2 texts is that they both have the woman as temptress. For Hyro, this is Luchair, a young and brave woman who is a princess in Dalware. And that is another similarity, that both Elric and Luchair are actually royalty. The biggest difference between Elric and Hyro's journey is the ending for Hyro stays the course of the traditional hero journey. Though he does not obtain his actual quest object, a computer, he does obtain computer manuals, which consist of the knowledge that he was seeking. Furthering this difference is that Hyro actually reaches the Master of the Two Worlds phase, since he knows he can survive in the South, which is America, and the victory from battling the fungus house with his mind power reinforces his confidence. The final stage of the hero's journey are fulfilled by Brother Aldo's final words of the story. "The world moves at a certain speed," answered Aldo. "We all must learn to move with it." This closing statement rings rather closely to Campbell's own words. The hero is the champion of things becoming, not of things become, because he is. Before Abraham was, I am. He does not mistake apparent changelessness in time for the permanence of being, nor is he fearful of the next moment, or of the other thing, as destroying the permanent with its change. Nothing retains its own form but nature, the greater renewer, ever makes up forms from forms. Be sure that nothing perishes in the whole universe, because it does vary and renew its form. Thus the next moment is permitted to come to pass. Campbell's perspective here ties into Lanier's overall theme of environment, and it appears that Lanier agrees that nature is the greater renewer. In closing, I'd like to highlight that both of these stories had heavy influence on the creators of role-playing games. For example, Hyro's Journey had a deep influence on the creation of Gamma World, while the Elric saga impressed heavily upon Gary Gygax, the creator of Dungeons & Dragons. The rich worlds these authors created, along with the interesting and complex journeys of their characters, continue to reach us beyond the pages of the original texts in which they appeared. I hope you enjoyed learning about the hero's journey in the context of Michael Moorcock's Elric and Sterling Lanier's Hyrule. Thank you.